What's happening, guys? Cooper Carter here for G66, and on this week's Fractal Friday, I'm going to show you one of my favorite foot switch tricks that will open up a whole world of tonal possibility right at your feet on any of Fractal's floor units. If you've been following along for the last couple Fractal Fridays, you know that I've been diving into my current 2023 live preset and taking you guys through some of the things that I use to make my playing more seamless live and get to the tones that I need to get to. One of the features of that live preset is a single drive block with 4 different channels. And on my FM9, I have a single switch to bypass or unbypass that effect, bring it in or out of line. And then I also have another switch that cycles between those 4 channels each time that I tap it. So A, B, C, or D for my 4 different drive blocks. Now I could consolidate these 2 switches into one by having the bypass be the tap function of that switch and then having the channel switch be the hold function of that switch. But then I wouldn't be able to cycle as quickly as I sometimes like to between the 4 channels because I'd have to wait for the hold timeout each time I wanted to change channels. There's also the downside of not being able to see what my 4 different drives are right at my feet. Now, of course, you could just remember what your 4 channels are, and I have used the same drives for a pretty long time, so I do know A, B, C, and D, but it's always nice to have clearer information at your feet when you're playing live to minimize mistakes, but more importantly to me, to minimize the amount of time that I'm spending thinking about anything other than having a great time playing, interacting with the audience and my band, and just enjoying the live experience. Those of you who have seen the last couple videos will also remember that I have a rotary block in my preset, and I have 2 different channels for that rotary block, a slower speed on A and a much faster speed on B, and switching between those 2 speeds allows the rotary or Leslie type speaker to ramp up and down as I change between those 2 channels. I do have that channel switch on the hold function of the bypass for the rotary block because I don't need to switch between the slow and the fast speeds of that rotary block anywhere near as quickly or as often as I might need to switch between my drive channels. But there is still a downside to this switching setup, namely that if I want to turn the rotary on and have it come on either on the fast setting or on the slow setting, I need to first hold down the switch to change to the correct channel and then click the switch to unbypass it or bring it into line. The solution to both of these issues is one of my favorite features in Fractal foot units, and it's called Smart Bypass. Now, those of you who have been following along and saw the full tone tour of my live preset will have heard that sometimes I also bring out an FC6 in addition to my FM9 to have some extra foot control on the floor and to minimize the amount of layout switching I need to do to get to some of my effects. Combining a foot controller with the Smart Bypass feature is a fantastic way to get a ton of tones right at your feet without jamming up your preset with a lot of extra blocks. You can use one block and leverage the power of channels to create a huge tonal palette. Now, like so many Fractal Fridays, this video was inspired by a recent session that I did this week on Mr. Neil Sean's rig, who's currently out with Journey with an additional FC6 alongside his FM9. And as always, this is going to be a short video, but if you want to get the absolute most out of your Fractal unit, whether that's an Asphex 3, an FM9, or an FM3, make sure to visit classes.coopercarter.com for my complete Fractal Audio Masterclass series. So let's dive into Smart Bypass. Now, some intrepid FM9 users may have already discovered Smart Bypass on the factory default layout number 7, or the channels layout. The channels layout on the FM9 really gives you a great overview of the various ways to control the various channels of any given block. On the far right of the FM9, we have 4 buttons, one for drive 1 channel A, one for drive 1 channel B, and then 1C and 1D respectively. Pressing these buttons will simply switch the channel of the drive block, but you need a separate button to turn it on or off. Next, you've got a delay 1 switch that switches between or toggles channel A and channel B, just like the hold function of my live preset's rotary block. And then finally, along the bottom here, we have amp 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D, but there's something special about each of these buttons. If you look here on this second press line, we have off, Smart Bypass, and previous channel as options, and each of these 4 buttons is set to Smart Bypass. Now, what that enables these different switches to do is not only turn on and off the amplifier in this case, but also to switch the channels of that amp. Let me show you what I mean. So right now we're on the A channel of amplifier 1 and the amplifier is on, it's active. If I press this switch again though for channel A, the amplifier turns off, so it's now bypassed. If I hit this fourth switch though, the amplifier turns on and we're instantly on channel D. Now if I select another switch, I simply change channels, but I haven't bypassed the amplifier. So clicking an active channel button will bypass the effect entirely. Clicking any of the inactive buttons will switch to that channel and either turn on the effect if it's off or simply switch to the channel if it's already on. Now, smart bypass may not make the most sense on an amplifier block since I almost never want to actually bypass an amplifier, but let's apply it to the drive block in my live preset and I hope it will become very obvious just how useful this feature can be. I've got a blank layout on layout 3. I'm just going to call this FC6. I'm going to show my switch layout as an FC6 and I've plugged an FC6 into the FM9. I'm going to copy this amp 1A smart bypass switch onto this first switch on my FC6, and I'm going to change the effect to drive 1. I'm going to make it orange, because I always associate orange with drives, and now I'm going to name this after the A channel of my drive block, which in this case is the T808 mod. So we'll call this T808. So now I'm going to copy this function over to our next switch, change this to channel B, and I'm going to name it after channel B of my drive, which is the tube drive 3 knob. So I'll just call it tube drive. We'll make this one, let's say, red. I'm going to copy it again, and I'm going to paste it up here, change it to channel C, and this one is going to be our jam ray. We'll make that one red. And finally, I'm going to copy it one more time, paste it here, change it to channel D, and call this our Bender fuzz. And I'll make that one orange. Now I'm going to copy it to the bottom here and turn it blue, change this to be rotary 1, and I'm going to change it to channel A and call this rotary slow. Copy paste it up to the top and call it channel B rotary fast. And now with just one drive block, I have access to 4 different drive pedals at will. So the Bender fuzz, we'll turn it on. And now we can turn it off. We can go to the 808. And then without turning the block off, select the jam ray or the tube drive, and finally bypass the block entirely. So any of these drives is instantly accessible whether or not the block is already on. You're taking care of bypassing and channel switching at the same time. And the same is true now for my rotary speaker. I can turn it off entirely, or I can turn it on to fast and then switch to slow, or I can bypass it and instantly access fast, all at the touch of one button. If you need to see all 4 channels of a block laid out across your board, why waste a 5th button then for bypassing that effect if you can use Smart Bypass to simply turn on or off the effect while simultaneously switching to the channel? This is a hugely powerful feature, and I absolutely love it. I hope you guys found this video useful and that this technique has either solved a problem for you or given you an idea about how you can better implement your tones live on either the FM9, the FM3, the FC12, or the FC6. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video, please do make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to G66's channel, and leave me a comment in the comment section below, letting me know what you'd like to see on a future Fractal Friday. And as always, if you guys want to get the absolute most out of your Fractal unit, whether that's the Asphex 3, the FM9, or the FM3, make sure to visit classes.coopercarter.com for my complete Fractal Audio Masterclass series. For all things Fractal Audio, keep it right here on G66, and I will see you guys next week on Fractal Friday.